The series begins in Rome in the Colosseum, where two warriors combat the fiercest gladiator at that time, Lucius Caelius, seemingly unbeatable. But one of the warriors strikes Lucius with multiple blows. In the end, he beheads the beast. Hence, the glory of Spartacus is born. Back in time, a defenseless man is against an armored gladiator. The man is killed. Underneath the arena in the dungeon, there is a man confined with chains. He is unsettled. Let's go further back to see Glaber, the Roman army legatus, in the city of Thrace, convincing an irate crowd to align with the Roman Republic in the fight against the Greeks in Getae. The Thracian commander responds that if the Romans eliminate the Getae off their lands, then they will join them in the war. Glaber agrees. Shura tells her husband, the Thracian commander, that she had a strange dream about a red serpent. She says it is a warning from the gods for him not to go to the war. He replies that the lled worship the mountain wolves and that snakes aren't in their books. He has given his word. Ilithia comes to Gelbar's tent. She tells him that her father is putting a lot of hope in him to get rid of the Greeks and Mithridates. In doing so, he will gain her father's respect. Glaber doesn't give a dime to fight the Getae or the Thracians. He wants to defeat the Mithridates only for the sake of glory. After a series of investigations about the Getae moves, the Thracian and Drenis learn that they're retreating to the west, to their villages in Thrace. They tell Glaber that they need to head west towards their villages. He refuses the request and dismisses them. The next day, Glaber comes to the field and commands the Thracians to fall into formation to move to the east. But the Thracian argues that he gave him his word to defy the Getae. Hence, he disobeys him. Glaber was about to kill them, but the Thracians manage to knock him off the horse. They kill the Roman auxiliary. In a foggy forest, Shura is picking fruits from a tree when she is ambushed by the Getae. But her husband rescues her. They spend the night in a tent where he tells her that they're going to the south where the Getae won't risk following them. In the morning, they're attacked by Glaber and his men. Shura is taken to Rome, and the Thracian man is imprisoned in a boat in the middle of the sea. He finds most of those who were with him in the army. They tell him that they're bound for Capua. In Capua, Glaber tells his wife Ilithia that he has brought 6 Thracians. Knowing that the Senate of the chamber isn't satisfied with him, he's planning to stop the tongues by spilling the Thracian blood in the Colosseum. Ilithia succeeds in convincing her father, Senator Albinius, to accept the 6th Thracian show in the arena. The influencers of Rome attend the Colosseum: Betrayal, Solonius, and Glaber, each along with their gladiators and man. The guards uncuff the Thracian's wrists and take him behind the barred gate of the arena. The crowd is roaring from the excitement, while Drenis is fighting a gladiator who slits his throat. The Thracian looks behind him where slain men are crammed on the floor. It's his turn now. And Glaber in the Pulvinus says that he has withheld the best show to the end. The soldiers blow the trumpets and the Thracian, with nothing but bare arms and chest, stands opposite the armored gladiator. And what worsens the situation is that 3 more gladiators join in against him. The crowd boos the unfair battle. Glaber gives the fight signal. The 4 gladiators circle the Thracian as beasts waiting to attack the prey. He falls covered with blood and humiliation. But then Shura's voice echoes inside him, to kill them all. He tears them down into pieces scattered in the arena. The crowd buzzes with excitement and calls him Spartacus, which puts Glaber in a difficult position. Senator Albinius holds the death sentence as Spartacus has shown potential powers to fight like the old kings, and Betrayal suggests taking him in with his gladiators. The next day, Betrayal's men take Spartacus and cut his long hair strands. Then Spartacus engages in a verbal scene with Betrayal's strongest gladiator, Crixus. He scoffs at him by saying that he's an honored guest at the greatest and finest ludus in Capua, a training school of Betrayal, and they're taken for the training led by Doctor. Betrayal and his wife Lucretia attend the training. Spartacus against Crixus fighting with the training swords, But Spartacus is given a real sword. He hurls it toward Crixus, who avoids it. The training continues under Doctor's supervision, who flogs the recruits with his whip under the scorching heat of the sun. The mealtime comes, and he gets to know a man whose name is Varro, who says that he consigned himself under a heavy load of debts. As Glaber is visiting him tomorrow, Batiatus commands Doctor to bake up the slaves until they become as solid as the bricks, or else he should send them to the mining work. A man called Ovidius demands 3 months' payment past the due date. Yet Batiatus doesn't have the amount and promises to pay him after the games of the Vulcanalia with 30% interest. Back in the dungeon, Doctor says they'll rest when they prove themselves worthy as men. They keep training all night long until the morning's beams crack down onto them. Doctor commands them to halt, because the day's training will begin shortly and they have to eat. Barca, one of the gladiators, intends to insult them. He spills the porridge on the ground. But a man called Asher gives Spartacus a piece of bread because he's playing odds and putting a coin on his survival. Spartacus divides the bread into 2 halves and gives the other one to Varro. At this moment, the guards grab Spartacus and put him in jail, and Glaber comes in. Spartacus implores him to set his wife free. He replies that she's paying for his sins. He stirred the Roman auxiliary into desertion, calling his command into question, and trembling his standing with the Senate, and above all, he rubbed his face in mud when he survived the death sentence. Glaber desires for him the slow death, sliver by sliver. And he shows him a stripe which he took from Sura's thigh and sold her to a Syrian merchant. At the ludus, the guards bring Spartacus for sword training, and he's paired with a recruit who's called Curza. Spartacus seems unresponsive until he sees Glaber, which boils the blood in his veins. He releases his anger into the other recruit until the man faints. To stop him, Doctor snaps his whip around his neck. He meets Batiatus and says that Spartacus doesn't follow a definite pattern. Rather, he's unpredictable, and they need to school him to follow their standards. Batiatus summons him to his chamber and puts the stripe immediately in his service. Spartacus reveals that Glaber promised him that once he fights for him in the arena, he'll bring them together. The counteroffer from Batiatus pulls Spartacus's strings, manipulating his thoughts that once he wins his games with honor, he'll be united with her. The tests commence. Varro stands to a draw and passes the test. Now it's Spartacus against Crixus. Doctor signals them to begin. Crixus is up to strike him dead, but Spartacus pulls the stripe from underneath his foot, causing Crixus to lose his balance and fall overhead onto the ground. Panting, he jumps over the gladiator. He wants to slice his skin with his sword. Batiatus ceases the test, announcing that he has passed it. Spartacus recites the Sacramentum Gladiatorum. He swears his life and loyalty to the ludus and its master, Dominus Batiatus, and he's marked out with the Gladiators' Brotherhood. They keep their training up and running when Doctor announces the Vulcanalia, a festival to keep the wildfires at bay. 20 of the warriors will represent the ludus, and 2 of the finest of the gladiators will fight in the Colosseum. Once they're out, Doctor announces the pairing for the Vulcanalia. Crixus will honor the house of Batiatus at the arena against Gnaeus, and Spartacus against Varro at the beginning of the match. Cunningly, he triggers Gnaeus, who charges himself like a crazed goat and hits his head into a wooden training pillar. Upon this, Doctor commands to take him off the training field. As the reception has begun, the gladiators prepare for the public, and as Gnaeus has been excluded from the arena, unluckily for Spartacus, the Sardinian will fill the void and face Crixus. Out of the blue, Spartacus lunges at Crixus. Both engage in a fight, and the crowd cheers at what seems to be the pre-battling snacks. Batiatus makes the best of the situation and announces that what just has happened is a mere taste for tomorrow when the grudges settle down. At the Colosseum, Batiatus introduces Spartacus, but before finishing the oration, he attacks his opponent. The start was promising, but it seems that he lost control. At the end, Crixus puts the blade of his sword onto Spartacus' neck, When he sees Sura's stripe around his arm, he raises 2 fingers signaling his surrender. Betrayal, who spent a fortune on Spartacus, grants him life against the audience's will for the killing. Not expecting a low-key performance, he chains Spartacus and drags him to a sloppy end, deciding to take his life. But then he leaves him for the underworld, where there are no rules to exist, and the untamed beasts can be unleashed. In the underground, Curza dies under the hammer hits of Ixion, who peels off his face skin to signal the win. Now it's Spartacus' turn, when his share of weapons is only the brass he wears on the knuckles of his hands, while the other has thorny gloves. In the end, Spartacus kills the man with a hook in his neck. The opponents get stronger after each win, but Spartacus kills them. One day, Betrayal tells him to get ready to fight for one of the furious fighters in the underground Mytilus. But Spartacus' victories come in succession, one by one. However, his strength fades a bit. He sees hallucinations of his wife. In a dungeon, Spartacus opens his eyes to a door's rattling sound. A guard takes him to Betrayal, who says that he kept his promise and brought Sura back to him. Spartacus meets Sura, but the sky pours blood. He opens up his eyes to learn that he was in a nightmare. In real life, Betrayal tells him to get ready for the next fight. Spartacus replies that this will be the last of his fights, insinuating that he is no longer able to bear the ugliness of the pit's fights. He wants him to put his bidding on Ixion, because he's going to die. But he wants him to keep his promise and save his wife from the Syrian merchant. Betrayal agrees, but today he has to show a real fight. Ixion draws a bipenis, and Spartacus draws a sicca. They seem equal until Spartacus falls on the ground waiting for his death, but he notices 2 men among the crowd who aim to kill Betrayal. Barca kills one and the other is killed when Spartacus gets rid of Ixion and throws the axe toward the man. They drag the bodies out, and Asher finds out that they're branded. At night, Betrayal summons Spartacus. He favors keeping him alive and announces in front of Doctor that he shall rejoin the gladiators once he regains his strength, and gives him his sword back with Sura's stripe. The next day, the magistrate Calivius visits Betrayal at his villa. Lucretia says that he's coming to invoke the gods to end the drought in the lands. They'll bring the best offerings to appease them, because they'll meet the victorious Theocles, who bested 100 men. None of them came out alive except for Doctor. The magistrate decides to pick the men by himself. He chooses Crixus and Spartacus. Asher and Barca search for the slave trader, who may know the mark on the dead body. Upon finding him, they tell Betrayal that the brand belongs to a slave trader whose name is Remus. Barca brings the slave's trader, and Betrayal vents out his anger at the man until he utters, "Ovidius." The entire family is wiped out except for a little boy. Ovidius implores him to leave the child. Betrayal asks a question whether he's the one who sent the slaves to kill him. He answers that Solonius paid his debt in exchange for killing him. Now he says that he won't kill him, but his slave will. And from behind, Barca slits his neck in front of the child. In the ludus, Doctor trains Crixus and Spartacus to form a unity against Theocles. After a while, Asher advises Spartacus that to survive Theocles, he must consider Crixus an equal enemy and never trust him. And the combat begins. Crixus and Spartacus head to the middle of the arena, and Theocles comes alone from the opposite gate. A fierce battle takes place. It seems that the warriors dance a ritual on the ground of the Colosseum, and the sky is waiting for the prey to ascend to its gates. The Theocles seems death-proof, but with the unity of the gladiators, they batter him severely. He falls to the ground. Did he come back from the dead? Probably it's true. But he stands up on his feet and wounds Crixus. Spartacus beheads him to register his name in history. The sky pours down the long-awaited rain, and people are thrilled by the multiple victories all at once. The magical chants of Spartacus are echoing in the Colosseum. In the house of Betrayal, the gladiators chant with the name of the Shadow Slayer, Spartacus. and Doctor grants him a room away from the rest of the horde. Barca and Asher have put a price on the winner, and now Barca wants his coins from Asher, who overhears Barca and Petros' plan to buy their freedom, and that he didn't kill Ovidius's little child. But Spartacus has other plans. He confides in Varro that he'll escape with his wife. Varro points out that if he manages to escape the guards, how will he be able to overcome Doctor? Spartacus takes a tour of the market with Betrayal and Doctor. He asks to buy drinks and women for the gladiators as the victory's treat. His true intention is to get the men drunk and unable to catch him once he escapes with Shura. A messenger comes with a letter for the magistrate that Ovidius's child has been found in the desert, and Asher, fishing in the troubled water, discloses what he has heard about Barca's plan to escape. The gladiators celebrate the drinks and women. Only Doctor doesn't drink. Spartacus goes to Crixus and furtively takes his sedative pills and salutes them in a mug of drink. Then he heads to Doctor and tells him that as a great source of his victory, he would like to share a drink with him. Once he's confronted by his betrayal, Barca confirms that he killed the little boy, and all this is a fabricated lie against him. But what about his friend Petros, who snitched the truth about what he has done? Asher stabs him in the back. He runs, but the guards knock him down. The last strike is for Betrayal, who kills him. The magistrate comes back saying that the message was false because he found the child's body. This means that Barca killed the boy, and it is Asher who falsified a cover-up story to get rid of Barca because of his debt. Lucretia tells her husband that once Spartacus is united with his wife, then he will go back to his previous condition as an untamed animal. But Betrayal says that he must keep his promise to him. The carriage arrives and Spartacus dashes out to take his wife in his arms. But the carriage man is covered in blood, and once he opens the rear doors, Sura's body falls covered with blood. Betrayal looks at his wife saying, "Promise to gather the couple together," and he did, smiling viciously. The next day, they prepare her for the burial rituals. Spartacus puts her stripe in her coffin and then burns the body. In his room, he's grieving the unexpected death of his wife. Betrayal pays him condolences, but Spartacus won't allow his wife's blood to go in vain. He seeks revenge. Then Betrayal pays Aulus, who brought her dead, and Lucretia asks him why he brought her home. He says it's because when Spartacus sees her with his eyes, he will believe she's dead. Petros grieves his loss too, sitting alone with Barca's dove. Now he doesn't have any support from anyone, as Barca used to defend him all the time. Back on the field, Spartacus is training with Doctor, who has discovered his betrayal. He says that he won't tell Betrayal only because he killed Theocles. Betrayal summons Spartacus and informs him about a duel offer from someone called Mercado, and that he'll wear his grandfather's armor and will execute the death sentence on 6 of the Thracians. Spartacus refuses to wear the armor and kill his clan's people. Betrayal, in a superior demeanor, commands that he must obey him and not let his emotions overcome his sound judgment. Crixus is regaining his strength gradually. However, he can't move his legs, and Naevia is looking after him. Doctor checks on him and says that he's glad he's alive, and he's waiting for him to come back to the ludus. One day, Spartacus sees the swollen face of Petros. He knows that Gnaeus did this to him. Spartacus says that he'll put an end to this by talking to him. But the next day, he's taken aback when he finds Petros hanged from the ceiling. Soulless, Spartacus darts out to Gnaeus and throws him off the cliff into the waters. And when Betrayal learns about that, he becomes furious and chains Spartacus to a wall in the cell. Mercado's games will take place soon. Spartacus must be prepared to represent the house of Betrayal as a loyal Roman gladiator. Before the fight, Spartacus says that he has never believed in gods in his life, but now he's joining his wife in faith. He will participate in the game under the condition that he will fight against the 6 Thracians. If the gods watch over him, then he will win. However, if there are no gods, then he'll join his wife. Then the fighters enter the arena, and Spartacus represents the noble Marcus Rufus, a Roman consul and commander. Mercato has decided to reenact his grandfather's glory as a tribute. Spartacus contemplates Sura's voice in his head, saying that he has to leave it to the gods. The Thracians start the fight by throwing a spear that scratches the side of his face, and Spartacus opens up his eyes. In the beginning, he gets wounds and kicks on the ground from his opponents, but the scale of victory weighs down for Spartacus. He kills them all until the last one who begs to leave him alive. But Spartacus recalls how he got into slavery. He sets the man free by giving him an honorable death in the arena. The crowd roars with excitement, and Spartacus says in a loud and proud voice, "I am Spartacus." Spartacus leads his path through successions of marvelous victories. The crowd is accustomed to cheering his name. However, Ilithyia is growing bored and wants to see another gladiator. Lucretia tells her that Crixus will come back to the fields, and Batiatus says that he'll have a slave auction and perhaps search for someone who shares the burden with Spartacus. At the market, Batiatus finds Solonius. The auction begins, and Batiatus offers 100 denarii for all of the slaves just to prevent his opponent from buying any of them. At the ludus, the same introduction stands, and Varro says it's history repeating itself. Only the change here is that Ilithyia buys one of the recruits whose name is Stegovax. She will pay for his food and training, and he'll become her gladiator. At the meal distribution time, Crixus beats one of the recruits, upon which Spartacus intervenes and tells him to let them have their food. Spartacus is the one who earned the lead amongst the gladiators, and Stegovax thanks him for the kind gesture. Spartacus replies that no man should die from hunger. The recruits come under Spartacus' lead. They follow his practices and fighting techniques so that one day he may open up the gates of freedom. The practitioner says that Crixus needs more time to heal. Lucretia suggests that Crixus is a family and they should find another job for him on their premises. Batiatus says that he's no different than any other slave, and once he's of no use to the ludus, he will be sold out. And Naevia whispers the news in Crixus's ears that Batiatus is thinking of selling him in the market. Lucretia and Ilithyia have arranged a setting to host 3 of Rome's most influential and beautiful princesses who are eager to see Spartacus in person. Lucretia summons Spartacus, and once he's present in front of them, the princesses examine his broad chest and wonder if his blood is a mixture of God's blood, as the legend says. Ilithyia comments about him being the Thracian dog that dishonored Rome with his treachery. In response, Spartacus says that's her husband who abandoned defenseless women to be raped and children to die. The other princesses say that they heard the rumors about Glaber. They leave Ilithyia with a fist of humiliation in her stomach. However, a plan has been seeded in her mind. She summons Stegovax and tells him that she'll secure everything he desires, including his freedom, once he obeys what she instructs him. Batiatus has received an offer for Crixus from Phibius, whose ludus is in Damascus, and there he will participate in small venues until he's completely healed. Naevia overhears the news and tells Crixus about that. She encourages him to seek Lucretia's help. On his way back to his cell, Crixus hears a noise and finds that Stegovax is strangling Spartacus. Crixus knocks him down. The news of the murder attempt reaches Batiatus. Lucretia seizes the golden opportunity and says that it's Crixus who saved the champion's life, and he immediately cancels the deal with Phibius. At this very moment, Ilithyia arrives and learns about the incident. She sees her man castrated and crucified in front of everyone else. What worsens her anguish is learning that Spartacus is alive. Back to the ludus, when Asher begins his training, Doctor questions from whom he got the permission to rejoin. Batiatus summons him and emphasizes that his duties now are in the market and bidding matters. Asher decides to meet Solonius. He takes a sum of money from him in exchange for disgracing Batiatus, saying that his life is in danger and that he must be careful. Batiatus learns that his plan to kill Solonius has failed, as his man should have killed Solonius himself, But what he doesn't know is that the reason for the failure is Asher's betrayal. A problem arises for Betrayal, and he doesn't know how to hide the body of Licinia. Lucretia says that no one knows that she came here. They will hide her body, and Ilithyia must not tell anyone because she is the one who killed her. Then comes a battle in which Varro and Spartacus participate. They are tied together by a chain. As usual, Spartacus strikes off all the opponents except for the last beast. Both try their best to find a weak spot to kill him, which is his neck. They manage to wrap a chain around his neck and pull it with all their might until his head is separated from his body. Upon that, the crowd cheers for the victory. This show fascinates Numerus, the magistrate's son. Betrayal seizes the opportunity and invites the influential guests to a dinner feast in his villa, and the magistrate Calavius accepts the invitation. As for Lucretia, she tells Ilithyia that her absence in the game was noticeable and that she must gather her strength and return to her social life as before. She gives her a list of the important people that she has to invite. In this way, Lucretia is using Ilithyia and exploiting her to her advantage. Betrayal summons Spartacus and Crixus and says that the magistrate's son wants to see them both in a duel. He says that it should be an act and they should not harm each other. The next day, the magistrate and his family come to Betrayal's villa. The guests pour in, including Solonius, who's invited only to see how far Betrayal has come in his networking with the upper class, the magistrate, and the senators. And the showtime begins. Numerius asks for a duel between Spartacus and Varro, but the little boy seems thirsty for the blood and wants Spartacus to kill his opponent. Betrayal doesn't agree, but the magistrate supports his son's demand. Upon this, Betrayal surrenders and commands him to kill. Spartacus doesn't know what to do, and Varro takes his sword and kills himself. Before dying, he asks Spartacus to take care of his family. In his cell, Spartacus rages with anger and breaks anything that comes his way, but Mira comes along to calm him down. Betrayal summons Spartacus and asks him to let go of all the sorrows of the past and focus on the future, the games of Pompeii, and facing the Titan, Pericles. This time, Spartacus wants to give the reward to Varro's family. Upon asking a favor to reserve him a seat in the Senate, the magistrate replies to Betrayal that he's good as a master of the ludus, and the Senate isn't his fair game. Betrayal gets angry at his comment, plus how he caused him a great loss of one of his great gladiators. Now he wants revenge. His men attack the magistrate's carriage and lock him down somewhere away from the public. The magistrate tells Betrayal that he's nothing without Spartacus. Betrayal returns to check on Spartacus to find him ill. He asks the practitioner whether he'll be able to participate in the Pompeii Games. He replies that he hopes he will become well on time. This leaves the road open for Crixus. He meets Naevia and tells her that he will participate in the main game of Pompeii instead of Spartacus. Naevia responds to him that she is afraid for him because he has been months away from the fields, but he challenges her and says that he will look at her with the eyes of victory when she is in the Pulvinus. The game begins without the magistrate's presence, so Betrayal delivers the speech of the game. Crixus appears in the arena, but it seems that the audience doesn't favor him above Spartacus. And when Pericles comes, they chant with his name. At the beginning of the fight, Pericles seems the strongest, as if Crixus is going to die. Even Lucretia sends Naevia away to not witness his death, but suddenly Crixus stands and kills Pericles. When he looks at the Pulvinus as he promised her, he doesn't find Naevia. His victory remains incomplete. The news of the magistrate has arrived that his carriage is destroyed and all his men have been slaughtered. Betrayal tells Numerus that they must search for the magistrate. In another place, Asher tells Solonius that the magistrate has not disappeared and that the one who kidnapped him is Betrayal, and he can show him his place, but on the condition that he secures his escape, because the magistrate saw him, and he will be arrested later. Solonius unties the magistrate to find him murdered. Meanwhile, Asher tries to escape. Betrayal and Numerus finds Solonius red-handed, as if he is the one who killed the magistrate. This plan is all from Asher, as he didn't deceive Betrayal, but rather deceived Solonius. And Spartacus comes to his consciousness. Next to him is Aulus, the man who drove the carriage the day he found his wife was slaughtered. He asks him who killed Shura. Under intense pressure, Aulus confesses that the one who killed her was Betrayal. Crixus is still living the glory in the arena. And when the time comes for Solonius to be executed, Betrayal commands that Spartacus will kill him. Spartacus stands in front of Solonius, who seems weak compared to Spartacus, who takes his life. The old man is unable to confront him because he is very weak, and before beheading him, Solonius tells him that he's killing the wrong man, and that the real criminal is his master, Betrayal. Spartacus responds to him that he should not fear, because Betrayal will catch up with him soon. Here Solonius laughs, and Spartacus beheads him. The crowd roars in madness. Mira comes to Spartacus's cell and asks him why he killed Aulus. He says that he killed his wife Shura, and that Betrayal ordered killing her. Mira reminds him that the Roman law speculates if a slave kills his master, all slaves will be condemned to death. He replies to her that everyone meets their fate. Mira doesn't like his answer. Spartacus decides to see Betrayal. There's a knife placed on the table. The anger inside him urges him to end him, but he sees that Varro's wife is serving him with the rest of the servants. He manages this raging anger inside him. Ilithyia comes in and tells Betrayal to meet her husband Glaber, who says that many things happened in Capua, such as the death of the magistrate, the death of Ovidius, the disappearance of Licinia, and many other things. When Betrayal asks to discuss the whole topic, Glaber doesn't want to waste more time with him. They will discuss everything in Mercato's presence. Lucretia gets tired and sick, and her husband learns that she is pregnant, so celebrations are held for this happy news. And to show his well wishes, Glaber visits Betrayal, who asks him to stand with him to secure a political position, even if it is a secondary one. Glaber replies that why should he deal with a slave trader like him? Betrayal says that all of Capua celebrates the Betrayal ludus, especially since he is with Spartacus, the champion of Capua. Glaber asks for Spartacus to fight his guards, and Spartacus knocks them all down. Then he asks Spartacus to kneel before him, and he does. However, a problem occurs when Crixus learns that Asher took Naevia as a gift from Betrayal. Crixus becomes irate and attacks Asher. This is what forces Glaber to reconsider sponsoring Betrayal. Lucretia gets into an uncontrollable fight with Naevia when she learns that she is having an affair with Crixus. Naevia says that he doesn't love her, and that he is only obeying her orders. Glaber decides to return to Rome with his wife Ilithyia, but Betrayal stops him and says that his wife is the one who killed Licinia, and that he hid the matter in exchange for his sponsorship. But if he doesn't agree, then the corpse will appear on the surface again. Here, Glaber slaps Ilithyia. How come she does such a thing and stains his reputation? He agrees to grant the sponsorship to Betrayal. Glaber leaves Ilithyia behind and tells her not to follow him to Rome. As for Crixus, his punishment is to be flogged. Naevia meets him to bid him farewell. He says that once he earns his freedom, he will meet her. But she begs him to stop talking about the freedom, or he'll be killed as what happened with Barca. Betrayal killed him. As for Spartacus, he wants to carry out a revolution and a coup against the masters. Some of the slaves preferred to pledge loyalty to their masters. Betrayal says that after 2 days there will be a celebration to mark Glaber's sponsorship, and that he will arrange a duel between Spartacus and Crixus. He wants to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, to please the viewers, as well as get rid of Crixus. Spartacus suggests that Crixus gets out of the cell so that he can prepare well by the training, because he wants to fight in a fair game where the powers are equal. Thus, the viewers will enjoy it more. Betrayal likes this suggestion. Mira meets Spartacus, who tells her that she must make sure the cell doors are opened when the coup starts. She gets along with his plans because now she can't be away from him. She is falling for him. Glaber's guards seem to encroach on the gladiators, and this makes Doctor upset. He tells Batiatus about that. But Batiatus says that it's better if they ignore them because Glaber agrees with the difficulty of taking his sponsorship. Batiatus decides to grant Doctor freedom and appoint him as a supervisor over the gladiators. Here, he remembers Naevia when she told him about Barca, and how he's been killed when he wanted to be freed. He mentions that to Batiatus, who says that Barca's matter was different, as he was a traitor. Doctor takes Crixus out of the cell and tells him that he is free. He encourages him to return his glorious title, but Crixus doesn't seem interested in that. He only wants to find Naevia. Batiatus and Lucretia decide to get rid of Crixus and keep Spartacus because he is the symbol of the ludus. Batiatus poisons his cup. At the cell, Lucretia tells him that she is pregnant with his child. He says that he doesn't care about that, as he was hoping that Naevia would be in her place. Then she tells him that in all circumstances he and Spartacus will die. And the battle between Spartacus and Crixus comes. Crixus' fight is fierce because he wants his freedom at all costs. Spartacus convinces Crixus that because of the child they have poisoned him, and that he must join him. Crixus is convinced, especially when he feels the dizziness. Spartacus and Crixus cooperate to kill Batiatus, but what happens is that Mercado comes before him and takes the hit. Then Spartacus attempts to carry on, but Doctor stops him with his whip. Crixus cuts it for Spartacus to complete his mission. All the slaves and gladiators engage in killing Glaber's guards. When Doctor and Crixus confront, Crixus tells him the truth that they have poisoned him because Lucretia is pregnant with his child. They also killed Barca and Spartacus' wife, Shura. And now they must demolish this place and rise against the dishonest masters. Lucretia asks Ilithia to summon her guards. She says she will bring them, but what she does is locking up the gates on them. And Mira opens the cell's doors for the gladiators. Doctor goes after Asher, who hides under one of the bodies. As for Batiatus, he confronts Spartacus, who takes his life, and Vero's wife ends Numeros. After that, the gates open to the outer world. Spartacus says that from now on everyone is free, and no one should die for anyone else's interests. They go on with their lives, to a free Rome.